Welcome to Science Snippets, a video series by Agents of Change in Environmental Justice, where we talk to fellows about their recent work and research. Today we'll be hearing from Misbath Daouda, a PhD candidate in environmental health sciences at the Columbia Mailman School of Public Health, where she specifically researches the implications that transitions to clean or renewable energy have from a health equity standpoint. Misbath is also the lead author of a new paper called Prediction of Personal Exposure to PM 2.5 in Mother-Child Pairs in Rural Ghana, published now in the Journal of Exposure Science and Environmental Epidemiology.
So the goal of this research was to assess whether short-term measurements of exposure to air pollution, which is what is commonly used, are representative of someone's exposure to someone's long-term exposure to air pollution, which is important for epidemiology and health effects studies. And this was done in a cohort in rural Ghana, trying to think about bridging the gap in air pollution exposure assessments in low and middle income countries, where there is a lot of household air pollution. Our cohort included mother and children in rural Ghana, and we found that it was feasible to predict long-term exposure to air pollution for these participants. And our models performed better for children than they did for mothers. And we think that that makes sense because one of the main predictors in those models was community ambient levels of air pollution. And we think that because children spend a lot of time outside, their exposure might more closely resembles ambient levels than that of their mothers, who are potentially exposed to solid fuel combustion emissions, as well as other sources of air pollution where they work. We also found that seasonality was a significant driver. In West Africa, there's a season called Harmattan season, where dusty and dry winds are blown from the Sahara Desert. And these seem to largely predict levels of exposure during that period. So our results suggest that it is feasible to predict long-term exposure to air pollution in settings like rural Ghana. And if these results hold in other settings for other low and middle income countries, this would be a great step forward in trying to characterize air pollution for these populations that often do not have their levels of exposure measured. And from an environmental justice perspective, often low and middle income countries have the highest levels of air pollution, but also are the countries that have the fewest number of reference grade monitors to measure air pollution. So the exposure of these populations is just not characterized, and something that's not well understood. And this kind of modeling approaches that we are proposing can help bridge that gap moving forward.